All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little recap of what Kyle Shanahan said during his Monday press conference with the media. Of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sleeper. That's right, this video brought to you by Sleeper. Sleeper sponsors the entire season long on the Krug Show. We're big fans of Sleeper. Check out Sleeper. I don't have the read in front of me, but Sleeper, we're big fans of Sleeper, and thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about what was in the Kyle Shanahan Monday presser. He started off talking about Ricky Pearsall, and I guess Ricky Pearsall banged his knee during the game. He said the pain was too much for him to go on. He was feeling structural issues. Shanahan said, hey, we'll have more details on the injuries a little bit later on, but that they think it's a PCL injury. We'll get more details on that later on today. It almost sounds like a bone bruise more than anything. It sounds like he banged his knee on the ground hard and there was a lot of pain, but I don't know if that necessarily means there's structural damage to the PCL, the MCL, or the ACL. But Kyle seemed to think it was a minor PCL deal. Now, it may keep him out of Thursday's game, which is big because obviously it's a huge game against the Rams, division game, and a game that the Niners really badly want to win. But it doesn't sound like it may be a season-long thing or any kind of a career-altering deal or anything that's going to really impact him long-term. So we'll know more later today, but Kyle thinks it's a PCL situation. It sounds like a bone bruise to me, but we'll find out. As far as Jauan Jennings, he comes out of this game also banged up. You know, I think he had a shoulder injury and a ankle injury before. Now he's got a rib injury. He took a very painful shot to the ribs. You could see it. He exposed his ribs on one of the catches, and he got absolutely plastered right on that spot, and it seemed like it caused him a lot of pain. So Jauan Jennings' status for Thursday night, very much up in the air because of his rib injury. And it's a pretty significant injury, you would think, if he's going to wind up missing time. So we shall find out. But rib injury added to the shoulder and ankle for Jauan Jennings, and his status for Thursday is undetermined. Brock Purdy, according to Kyle Shanahan, awoke this morning with a very painful toe. So I don't know exactly what the situation is there. As far as is it turf toe? Is it not turf toe? He wasn't moving all that well in practice. I didn't think he moved all that well in the game. Kyle said he didn't complain of any pain during the game, but that he called him last night on the phone and he was starting to have some pain in the toe, and that he woke up this morning with a lot more pain in the toe. So Kyle said, hey, look, if it wasn't a short week, you know, you probably could, you know, for sure get him out there, but he's not sure if he's going to be able, you know, if he's going to be able to go on Thursday or not. So they're going to have to figure that out pretty quick. Kyle was also asked, did he notice any different mechanics from Purdy? Now, I had mentioned throughout the week that Purdy was high with a number of balls in practice, and sure enough, in this game, he missed high at least 3 or 4 times. One time he actually missed low, but for the most part, his ball was sailing on him. And Kyle was asked, hey, do you think, you know, that is related to, you know, has his mechanics changed because of the toe? And Kyle said he really didn't know. He was not sure if the pain has impacted Purdy's overall throwing mechanics. But I think it's pretty clear he's not getting that toe down with the same speed, the same intensity. And I think that's causing some of his passes to sail on him. At least that's what I saw throughout the week in practice. Never saw it before the toe injury. And, you know, he seemed like he had a lot of problems throwing the ball where he wanted to throw it, which is a big part. Accuracy is a big part about playing quarterback in the NFL. So I don't know what Brock Purdy's status is for Thursday, but it sounds like it's up in the air. It could be Mac Jones. based on the fact that Brock Purdy's still having pain in the toe, and there's a game, on Thursday. Kyle Shanahan was asked about the Robert Saleh, Liam Cohn back and forth, and he said what I would expect him to say. It's not a big deal, because it's not a big deal. It's a volatile business, and there's a lot of coaches, coaches are volatile, and, they're volatile people, and then when they get into watching film, they get that much more volatile. And I've seen coaches on the same staff brawl it out over minutia on film we're watching practice film, and all of a sudden the D-line coach and the secondary coach are literally throwing haymakers, and we got a gigantic brawl melee that we have to break up. So that was not a big deal back in the Canadian League when I was working in the 90s in the Canadian League, and it's not a big deal now that Robert Saleh and Liam Cohn had that little on-field back and forth. People suggesting that Robert Saleh was going to be in some kind of major trouble because he said basically, "I will end you." Think again. This is not junior high. There's not going to be a meeting with the principal. Coaches are given a wide berth in what they can say to each other, and I don't think anything's going to happen to Robert Saleh for what he said to Liam Cohn on the field after Sunday's game. Kyle was asked a couple different questions that are kind of difficult. One of them, he's like, "Hey, what's up with your run game? Why can't you guys run?" And instead of answering what's wrong with the run game, he went into why the yard per carry numbers are not very high. That then shows that the Niners are averaging 3 yards a pop as far as, per run. And Kyle's like, "Well, those numbers will go up if you have some explosive runs, and we haven't been able to get any explosive runs." So it's like he's addressing, why the numbers down. The numbers down overall because you're not running it worth a damn, because you're running it for 3 yards a pop. Now you're yes, an explosive run or two would change the average as far as your yards per carry, but that still doesn't address the issue, which is you supposedly have the best running back in football. Why is the best running back in football, or one of the best running backs in football, averaging between 3.1 and 3.5 yards per carry in almost every game this year? I think that's the question. And the question, if you're going to be, truthful about it, has something to do with, the way it's blocked, and, a little bit to do with the runner. CMC has not been great this year at reading his blocks, and the block and the holes have not been there. And your offensive guards and your center are not moving people in the run game. I mean, these are the answers of why you're not running it. Not, you haven't had an explosive run. Yeah, that's why you don't average more yards per carry. But there's other reasons why you're not running it well that are real reasons that, it's like, why do you not have a better average? Because we don't have a great, why do you only average 19 points a game? Because we haven't scored 70 in a game. Well, okay. That's, so I get it. Yeah, your average points per game would go up if you scored more in any individual game. But then it's like, why aren't you scoring more in any individual game? It's like this little circular argument. Why is your yards per carry numbers down? Well, because we haven't gotten any explosive runs. Well, why haven't you gotten any explosive runs? Oh, they're playing a two-shell defense against us. Well, so wait, anybody who plays any kind of a two-shell defense just eliminates your run game from being effective? I mean, that's disingenuous chatter is what that is. Kyle was also asked, what did you think of the fact that the Niners had no pass rush? And he's like, Jacksonville neutralized our pass rush by getting rid of the ball quickly. And when they didn't get rid of the ball quickly, they chipped our ends. And it's like, yeah, so they blocked it. So they blocked you guys. That's also not really an answer. It's like, you didn't get much of a pass rush. We didn't get much of a pass rush because they got rid of the ball quickly and they chipped our guys. Well, so you saying all it takes is to totally get no hits on the quarterback and no pressures and no sacks, just get rid of the ball a little quickly and chip the guys off the edge? I mean, that seems like a like a pretty obvious thing. Seems like something that you should be able to overcome, you know. So you've never been chipped before. You've never had anybody get rid of the ball before. You always got 0 pressures and 0 hits on the quarterback and 0 sacks in that scenario. It's more of an it's like reasoning instead of like addressing the real problem, is that you don't really have good enough rushers, you know, both inside or outside without Nick Bosa. Kyle was asked about Renardo Green's neck injury. Didn't seem to think it was serious. Now, was Renardo out because of the neck, or is Renardo out because he's not playing well? I don't know, but he does think that he might return. He said Darrell Luter did a nice job filling in for him. Kyle was asked about the PI call on Upton Stout, and he said, you know, I didn't like it, but I could understand why they called it. And I guess Stout got there a little bit early, but I mean, it seems like one of those calls veterans are getting away with a lot in the NFL these days, and rookies aren't. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's a rookie. But I love the play. I thought it was aggressive. I thought, you know, that's what you want out of your corner. You don't want him to just sit there and try to tackle the guy hard after he makes the catch. How about challenging the catch? And that's what Upton Stout did there. And unfortunately, they called the PI call. Kyle was asked, hey, you know, from the writer was like, hey, you know, it seemed like there was multiple clips on the Parker Washington 87-yard punt return touchdown. And Kyle acknowledged, yeah, there were multiple, you know, penalties that went uncalled there on that kick return, on that punt return touchdown. But the guy still went 87 yards pretty much untouched. So, yeah, did the refs help him a little bit? Yeah, maybe. But your guys didn't get a finger on Parker Washington as he ran through the heart of your defense for an 87-yard return. And it's not the only bad, you know, coverage unit play you've had. Your coverage units stink. And that, if there's any consistent common denominator of any of these games, it's that the Niners special teams coverage units are garbage and absolutely not getting it done in any way, shape, or form. Wasn't just this game. It's been all the games. And it wasn't just the 87-yard return. There were other returns that weren't good in this game. So maybe they're a little bit better on the kickoff coverage than the punt coverage, but either way, it ain't nearly good enough. Kyle was asked about DeMarcus Robinson. He said he did some good things, but then he also did some bad things. And, you know, it was weird. It's like DeMarcus Robinson seemingly should have played a whole lot more than Kendrick Bourne and didn't. And it's like, that should have been the question for Kyle. It's like, why is a guy like Kendrick Bourne, who's pretty much given up for dead in New England, why is Kendrick Bourne getting a lot more reps than DeMarcus Robinson, when DeMarcus Robinson has a career and had a great summer and really looked quite a bit better than most of your other receivers all year, all throughout the spring and summer? He gets a 3-game suspension, and suddenly you forget about him and go with Kendrick Bourne, who's lucky to even still be in the NFL. And then Kendrick Bourne proceeded to have a horrible day with 3 drops, and he had more drops than he had catches. Kyle was asked about Malik Mustafa and said that they will open his practice window. It's a 3-week window in which they can decide whether to bring him back or not, probably after week 6. So that would be 2 more games, and then they would open that 3-week window. And then Kyle was asked also, so that was pretty much it. Kyle also said that, hey, you know, later today there'll be more updates on some of the injuries as they get more information and talk to the players a little bit more. So there will be more injury information coming later on today. We're brought to you by Sleeper. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades as well. They're a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.